How can each of many things be the entirety of one thing, the one thing that is at the same time all of those many things? Nowadays, the idea that we are all one is more and more accepted, or at least more and more considered, because there are a lot of people waking up to this idea. But even if you come to the conclusion that this is the best answer or explanation for many things, it's still hard to understand this dynamic. So a common joke about people who are waking up is when one such person is standing in front of an asshole, he would say, "I know we are all one, and I know you are me. I just didn't realize that I can be such an asshole." So how can we explain that we are all one, but at the same time we are so many and so different? Well, let me try to explain in my own way. Is it the precise representation of what's going on? Not at all. But I guess that it's a good enough representation for us to start thinking about the subject. At least is the best representation I ever came up with. Because the real truth, we will never know the real truth. But we can try to understand things from our point of view. So with our human brains and with our human experience. And this is what I would like to do. And to add a little bit of flavor, I will add time and storytelling, even though we know that the time does not exist. So let's start at the beginning. There was the one that was everything, and there was only him. And he had nothing to do. He was unable to explore anything, because he could not explore anything outside of him, because it was just him. There was no dynamic in his existence. He just was, and that was it. And he was bored. But he could not create something outside of him to interact with, because he was all there was. The only thing he could do is create something inside of him. And he decided not to split up, but to create two parts inside of him. Two parts that were also him, because he was all there was. And these two parts were then able to interact with each other. So they were able to have an experience. They were able to observe each other. They were able to grow by experience and observation. And they were starting to accumulate things that were theirs and theirs alone. But there were just two of them. So they started to get bored. So guess what? They did the same. They quote unquote split up again so that the parts of them could interact with each other and allow them to experience more and experience further. And those parts were now many more, but still they got bored. So they did the same. And their parts then did the same. And this went on and on and on. So we are now just a part of the part of the part of the part. But remember, each part was still the one. And graphically we can explain this by drawing sort of a triangle. Each one splits in two parts, and each of that part splits in two parts. That's the easiest way to understand it. But the reality is that the one did not just split in two parts, and not in two dimensions. So the parts were as many as he liked, and graphically in each direction. And those parts interacted with each other on the same level and from different levels of splitting. But maybe that becomes too complicated for today's video. So for today's video we're gonna put ourselves at the bottom line, or at the latest split, if you will. Even though when we dream we have experiences that are very similar to our human life experience. So I guess it depends on how you look at the dreams. But anyway, for the sake of argument, let's say that we are the latest split. And so is everybody else around us. But they are the result of different splits. Because only we are the result of a trail of splits that led to us. Everybody else is a result of different trail. So he's a product, if you will, of different ones, of ones that had different experiences, that created different aspects of themselves, or different aspects of the one. So even though one is always splitting himself into himself, it's not the exact same one. He is, but he is not. I hope you know what I mean. Okay, so now we've explained how one is all. But how do we explain that all are one? One could say that we could put together all the splitted ones, combine them together, and we get the one. But that's not it, because if that would be it, then we would be just a part of one. But the fact is that we are the one. You are the one. Each of us is the one. So how can that be? How can we explain that? So let's start with you who are watching this video. When you wake up from a dream, you say, oh, this was a nice dream, but this is who I really am. And when you will wake up from this illusion of life, when you will wake up into your higher self, you will say, oh, this was an interesting experience, but this is who I really am. And you will be aware of all the other experiences you had. But when you will wake up from that, you will say, oh, this was interesting, but this is who I really am. And when you wake up from that, you will say, oh, this is who I really am, and this is who I really am, and this is who I really am. And one day you will wake up as the one. But along all those wake-ups, it's gonna be you. The you, the I am you that you are now. And this is gonna happen to every one of us. So we each have our own quote-unquote I am feeling. And all of those feelings, the I am feelings, will wake up to one day wake up as the one. This is hard to get, but it's the only logical thing. It must be true. Nothing else can be true if this explanation of existence is at all true. So my friend, you are not just a part of the one. You are the one. And so is everybody else. And the one is everybody, but still he is just one. Meditate on this, my friend. If your ego is telling you that it is pointless to like, comment, and share my video with your friends, don't always listen to your ego. Listen to your heart, my friend.